He wasn't a biker. He wasn't even American. He came from the world of fashion. And yet, Harley-Davidson handed him the keys. What followed were layoffs, confusion, and a brand writers barely recognized. Was it bold evolution or the slow death of Harley-Davidson? This is how a man single-handedly ruined Harley-Davidson's future. Harley-Davidson's story used to be simple: loud engines, proud riders, and the open American road. But that story took a sharp turn when a German-born executive stepped in, a man named Jochen Zeitz. Born in Mannheim, Germany in 1963, Zeitz studied international marketing and finance at the European Business School. He began his career at Colgate-Palmolive, working in both New York and Hamburg. But his real breakthrough came in the world of fashion, not motorcycles. In 1993, at just 30 years old, Zeitz became the CEO of Puma, the struggling sportswear company. In less than a decade, he turned it around. Puma went from a near collapse to a global name. Zeitz gained a reputation as a bold reformer, the kind of leader who cuts deep and moves fast. He wasn't just a businessman, he saw himself as a changemaker. Zeitz later co-founded the B Team with Richard Branson, a group pushing for ethical capitalism. He also launched the Zeitz Foundation, focused on conservation and sustainable development. This was a man who thought big, not just about products, but about the world. The question was, did he understand motorcycles? In 2007, Zeitz joined the board of directors at Harley-Davidson, becoming the first European executive ever to do so. At the time, this seemed like a move toward global strategy. But for many fans of the brand, it felt strange. What did a shoe executive from Germany know about American steel and biker culture? Still, Harley gave him real power. He wasn't just a name on a board. He created and led Harley's Sustainability Committee, pushing the company to adopt greener practices and long-term environmental goals. At the time, it felt like a quiet shift, but it would soon grow into something much bigger. Fast forward to 2020. Harley was struggling, sales were down. Younger riders weren't connecting with the brand. The company needed new leadership. So when their CEO stepped down, Zeitz was named interim CEO in February 2020, then made permanent in May. But this wasn't a stopgap move. Zeitz came in with a mission. He promised innovation, transformation, shareholder value. But Harley's loyal riders weren't convinced. Because from the outside, it looked like Harley had just been handed over to a man who didn't ride, wasn't American, and didn't grow up in the culture. Before all of this, Harley-Davidson was more than a brand. It was a tribe. Founded in 1903, Harley had spent over a century building a reputation for freedom, rebellion, and grit. Their bikes weren't the cheapest or the most high-tech, but that wasn't the point. A Harley wasn't just transportation. It was a statement. The company had built an entire lifestyle around this image. The Harley Owners Group, HOG, founded in 1983, became a global network of riders. People weren't just buying bikes, they were joining a family. The product lineup reflected that. Riders could choose from a wide range of models. The Sportster, known for its raw simplicity. The Softail, built for laid-back cruising. The Dyna, beloved by customizers. The touring bikes, made for long-distance freedom. These weren't just machines. They were deeply personal choices, tied to identity, experience, and legacy. Harley's slogan captured it perfectly. Live to ride, ride to live. But when Zeitz took the reins, many felt that spirit was about to be rewritten. Jochen Zeitz had vision, no doubt. He had saved a global company before. But the world of motorcycles, especially Harley-Davidson, wasn't just another business to restructure. It was a culture. Zeitz didn't just bring a new strategy. He brought a new mindset. And for Harley's most loyal riders, that shift felt like a betrayal, because the question wasn't just what he planned to change, it was who he was changing it for. When Jochen Zeitz took control of Harley-Davidson in 2020, he didn't waste time with half measures. He announced a sweeping new strategy called the Rewire Plan, a top-to-bottom restructuring that would, in his words, return the company to focus and profitability. But behind that calm corporate language was a wrecking ball. The Rewire Plan aimed to slash Harley's complexity by 30%. That meant fewer models, fewer markets, less noise. Zeitz pulled Harley out of 39 global markets, narrowing the company's footprint to about 50 high-potential countries. He promised focus, discipline, simplicity. But to Harley's global fans, it didn't feel like streamlining. It felt like a retreat, as if Harley-Davidson, once a global symbol of rugged freedom, was now waving the white flag in dozens of countries. Then came Phase 2, the Hardwire Plan. Billed as a 5-year strategy from 2021 to 2025, the Hardwire Plan was Zeitz's long-term vision. It promised profitable growth and shareholder value with big bets in 3 directions: strengthen core heavyweight bikes like touring and trikes, invest in electric motorcycles, expand Harley into a premium lifestyle brand. To Zeitz, it was about modernizing. But to many in the Harley community, it read like this: shrink the lineup, fire your workers, abandon your fans, and change the soul of the company, all in 5 years or less. The consequences came fast. In mid-2020, as part of Rewire's first wave, Harley-Davidson cut 700 jobs globally, with 500 current employees laid off and 200 open roles eliminated. Entire departments were gutted. The CFO was pushed out. Regional offices were shut down or restructured. It was more than a workforce reduction. It was a shock to the system. For decades, Harley employees took pride in building something iconic. They weren't just workers, they were part of a legacy. And overnight, many were told they were no longer part of the plan. Then came the blow to riders themselves. Zeitz and his team began cutting models from Harley's lineup, starting with the Street 500 and Street 750. These bikes were entry-level machines, priced to bring in new riders, urban commuters, younger customers, people who couldn't afford a $20,000 bagger yet. But now, gone, discontinued, phased out. And with them, Harley effectively removed its own gateway drug into the brand. To many longtime fans, it was baffling. Why cut the models that brought people in? To Zeitz, the answer was clear: focus on what sells best and cut the rest. But in practice, Harley was starting to feel like a club with no door. Inside the company, morale plummeted. When a brand like Harley-Davidson starts laying off hundreds of workers, people take notice. Not just in the offices, but on the factory floors, in the dealerships, in the community. What does it say when a company built on loyalty starts cutting its own people loose? For many inside Harley, Zeitz's moves felt cold. Strategic, yes, but disconnected from the culture. The trust that once fueled the company, between leadership and employees, between employees and riders, was starting to erode. Harley was always about brotherhood, but suddenly, it started feeling like a boardroom. The external fallout wasn't much better. As Harley pulled out of markets, discontinued bikes, and tightened its product range, dealers were left guessing. Who exactly is Harley trying to sell to? Because here's what was really happening. Harley wasn't just shrinking, it was shifting. The new focus was clear: heavyweight touring bikes, large cruisers, trikes, big expensive machines aimed at high-income, legacy customers. But those buyers, they were aging out. And younger riders, priced out. Dealers across the US reported fewer options, longer wait times, and growing confusion about Harley's identity. The company had once been known for diversity, in models, in riding styles, in attitude. But now, the brand felt narrow, even closed off. Customers began asking questions Harley couldn't answer. Where are the affordable bikes? Why does every new model cost $25,000? Who is Harley even for anymore? The deeper problem wasn't just numbers, it was emotion. Harley-Davidson didn't build its empire on sales spreadsheets. It built it on loyalty. People didn't just buy bikes, they bought in. To the culture, to the brotherhood, to the brand. But as Zeitz restructured the company to look sleeker on paper, many riders felt left behind. And those who weren't angry were confused. Is Harley now a luxury brand? A tech company? A fashion label? By the end of the first year under Zeitz's plans, one thing was clear. Harley-Davidson wasn't just rewiring. It was disconnecting from its workers, from its riders, from the very culture that built it. And the more the company focused on short-term profit, the more it drifted from the long-term identity that made it legendary. But this was only the surface-level damage. The real rupture would come when Harley made its boldest bet yet, an all-electric brand, born from a company that used to define combustion. For over a century, Harley-Davidson roared through history on the sound of combustion. But in 2019, that roar was replaced by a whisper, the soft electric hum of Livewire, Harley's first electric motorcycle. The Livewire debuted with a price tag of $29,799, a premium price aimed at tech-forward riders, not traditional bikers. In the beginning, it made headlines. It was futuristic, sleek, fast, and fully electric. But for a company known for grease, growl, and rebellion, the reception was quiet, very quiet. The electric push didn't stop there. In 2021, Harley-Davidson made a bold decision. It spun off LiveWire into a separate brand. The logic? Let the electric division chart its own path, with its own leadership, branding, and market strategy, while keeping the Harley name protected from risk. To Seitz and the board, this was smart, safe, focused. But to riders and dealers, it was a red flag. If Harley was so confident in LiveWire, why did it distance itself from the product? And more importantly, who was LiveWire really for? The financial bet on LiveWire was massive. Harley-Davidson poured over $100 million into developing and launching the LiveWire brand. When it went public through a SPAC merger, the spin-off generated around $334 million in gross proceeds. It sounded good in the press releases, but the numbers on the ground told a different story. By early 2024, LiveWire had only sold 117 units in Q1, a number that was technically up from the year before, but still shockingly low for a brand trying to lead the electric motorcycle market. Dealers had stock collecting dust. Some had bikes on the floor for years, untouched. Others quietly admitted they had no idea how to sell them. Because the problem was, Harley didn't just try to make a new bike, it tried to make a new identity. And it forgot to bring its riders along. From the start, LiveWire didn't feel like Harley. Gone were the V-twin engine sounds. Gone was the rugged, masculine aesthetic. Gone was the raw connection between man and machine. In its place, a silent ride with space-age styling, more Silicon Valley than Sturgis. To many in Harley's core audience, it wasn't just a change. It was a rejection. The LiveWire looked nothing like what Harley riders knew or wanted. It didn't speak to their heritage, their lifestyle, or their values. And the price tag, nearly $30,000 before taxes, made it feel even more out of reach, especially for younger riders. If you were part of the Harley faithful, you weren't just priced out, you were pushed out. And for new riders, those tech-savvy, eco-conscious urban commuters LiveWire was supposedly designed for, the branding fell flat. Why would they buy from a company known for the past, when companies like Zero or Energica were already speaking their language? Harley wasn't ahead of the curve. It was caught in the middle. At the retail level, the problems multiplied. Dealers struggled to move units. Many had no real guidance on how to pitch an electric Harley. The buyers they typically served, baby boomers, blue-collar loyalists, longtime cruisers, had no interest in riding a laptop. Worse, the company's own brand strategy left dealers in limbo. LiveWire was now a separate brand, sure, but it still shared showroom space with traditional Harleys. That caused confusion. Should it be marketed as Harley-Davidson or something else? Should a LiveWire buyer get the same experience as a Road King customer? The answers weren't clear, and as inventory sat untouched, dealers began to ask, what are we supposed to do with these? In trying to protect the Harley brand, Seitz thought spinning off LiveWire would separate the risk, but instead it revealed a deeper issue. Harley was at war with itself. By the time the numbers came in, the message was clear. Harley wasn't building the future, it was burning bridges. For most of Harley-Davidson's history, the brand projected one very clear image: rugged, traditional, and unapologetically American. But under Jochen Seitz, that image began to shift. Soon after stepping in as CEO, Seitz made diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, a visible part of Harley's identity. The company joined the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index, earning a 90% score for LGBTQ workplace inclusion. They also hosted LGBTQ plus entrepreneur boot camps, sponsored pride events, and rolled out allyship training within the company. To Seitz, it was a reflection of the modern corporate world, inclusive, forward-thinking, and socially responsible. He was aligning Harley with the values of a new generation. But to Harley's traditional base, it was unfamiliar ground. These riders didn't grow up associating their bikes with boardroom pledges or diversity scorecards. They grew up with the sound of pipes, the open road, and the idea that Harley stood apart from politics, not in the middle of them. Seitz thought he was modernizing Harley's voice. But for many loyal customers, it sounded like Harley had started speaking a different language. That tension didn't just stay online. By mid-2024, Harley-Davidson was facing mounting pressure, not from activists demanding more inclusion, but from anti-DEI groups who felt the brand had gone woke. One of the loudest voices was political commentator Robbie Starbuck, who accused Harley of turning its back on its core community. Inside the company, there were also signs of pushback. Senior leaders raised concerns about Harley's cultural shift and what it meant for the brand's long-term identity. Stakeholders asked if the new initiatives were helping or harming public perception. Then, in August 2024, the company made a dramatic announcement. Harley-Davidson would no longer operate a DEI department. In fact, they revealed that the department had quietly shut down back in April 2024. The press release framed it as a strategic alignment decision, but the timing told a different story. This wasn't just about efficiency. It was a retreat. The same company that had pledged to be a leader in corporate equity just months earlier was now walking away from the table. The backlash came from both sides. On one hand, many Harley fans, especially longtime riders, applauded the decision. In online forums, social media posts, and dealer conversations, some celebrated what they saw as a return to Harley's roots. To them, the DEI era felt forced, out of touch, maybe even performative. Harley, they said, had finally remembered who it was. But not everyone agreed. Human rights organizations, former employees, and DEI advocates criticized the move as regressive and short-sighted. They argued that Harley had only just started building bridges into broader, more diverse markets, and now it was burning them. Some former staff claimed that the company's DEI efforts were more about image than true inclusion. Others said the work was real and necessary, and that killing it undermined employee trust. Internally, morale once again slipped. Employees who believed in the vision Zeitz had promoted, a modern, inclusive Harley, now felt that vision was negotiable. Depending on public pressure, Harley could pivot without warning. That realization didn't just hurt trust, it hurt identity. At this point in Harley's evolution, the message had become muddled. Was the company chasing younger urban riders with progressive values, or was it doubling down on its blue-collar American traditional base? Was it a leader in ESG and corporate social responsibility, or was it avoiding controversy to keep its brand safe? No one, not even loyal fans, could say with certainty. And when a brand known for clarity loses its voice, trust begins to die. The DEI reversal didn't exist in isolation. It came after years of model cuts, electric confusion, and executive turnover. It added to the sense that Harley wasn't sure who it wanted to be anymore. And in the world of motorcycles, a world built on identity, that confusion can be fatal. Because people don't just ride Harleys, they become Harley riders. And when the brand starts to shift beneath their feet, politically, culturally, financially, many stop riding altogether. In trying to please everyone, Harley had satisfied no one. And that collapse in clarity would soon show up where it hurts most, on the charts, in the dealerships, and in the boardroom. By 2024, the numbers told a story Harley-Davidson could no longer hide. Under Jochen Seitz's leadership, the company's revenue fell by 11%. Even more alarming, diluted earnings per share dropped 29% year over year. And globally, motorcycle shipments fell 17%. Down to just 148,862 units. These weren't market hiccups, they were warning signs. Zeitz had been billed as the fixer, the brand architect, the man who turned Puma into a global force. But the financials showed a brand losing ground, fast. For investors, it wasn't just a failure, it was a broken promise. Across the country, Harley dealerships began to go dark. In 2024 alone, long-established dealerships in New York City, San Francisco, Florida, Illinois, and Missouri shut their doors, casualties of shrinking demand and rising costs. These weren't pop-up showrooms, they were community pillars. To longtime riders, losing a dealership felt like losing a home base. The Harley store wasn't just a place to buy bikes, it was a clubhouse, a hangout, a cornerstone of local motorcycle culture. Then came the fracture from inside. In April 2025, Harley board member Jared Dourdeville resigned, publicly and pointedly. In his exit letter, he expressed grave concerns about the company's direction, its strategy, and its leadership under Zeitz. He specifically criticized Harley's reliance on remote work, saying the company had lost its edge, its unity, its presence. "Motorcycling is visceral," he wrote. "It's not a brand you manage over Zoom." His words echoed what many employees and riders had felt for years. Harley's leadership had drifted too far from the road. This wasn't a quiet resignation. It was a cultural revolt. In May 2025, the inevitable happened. Harley-Davidson officially announced that Jochen Zeitz would step down as CEO once a successor was named. The search for new leadership had begun, but not because of success, because of necessity. To some, it felt like the end of a failed experiment. To others, it was déjà vu. Zeitz had been brought in to save Harley, but 4 years later, the company was dealing with lower sales, internal fractures, brand confusion, and a fractured rider base. What kind of leader comes next? A financial surgeon? A cultural healer? A rider? Because now, the company isn't just looking for a CEO, it's looking for an identity. Harley-Davidson didn't fall in one dramatic moment. It bled out slowly, one decision at a time. It started with cutting models. Then came the job losses, the live wire gamble, the DEI reversals, the retail collapses. And all along the way, riders were left in the dark, wondering what Harley still stood for. Was it heritage, innovation, activism, nostalgia? No one could say. The brand that once roared with purpose now muttered with confusion. It had become too polished, too careful, too corporate. A brand obsessed with slogans and quarterly earnings while forgetting how to make people feel something. Harley wasn't cool anymore. It was corporate, and no one tattoos corporate logos on their chest. Can Harley come back? Maybe, but not with another empty rebrand, not with another 5-year plan, and definitely not with another CEO who thinks culture is something you build with consultants. Harley needs to get back to what made it great: loyalty, simplicity, identity, emotion. It needs to build machines that stir the gut, not just click on a balance sheet. It needs to stop chasing trends and start leading a tribe again, because the people are still out there. The stories, the loyalty, the passion. But they're waiting for a signal, not from the boardroom, from the road. Jochen Zeitz thought he could reshape Harley into something modern, safe, and sustainable. But in the end, he built a brand nobody recognized, and fewer wanted. The numbers fell, the stores closed, the leaders walked, and the legend that once conquered the American road was left stuck in a corporate roundabout. Now the company faces a question no spreadsheet can answer. Will Harley ride again? Or is this where the road ends? So, what do you think? Was it bold leadership or betrayal in slow motion? Harley's story isn't over, but it may never be the same. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like if this hit home, and subscribe if you're still holding out hope for a comeback.